Excerpts from the History of the Bantam and Willie Jeeps and the Bantam Reconnaissance Vehicle, by Curtis Redgap. The story begins in Great Britain with Herbert Austin. He founded the Austin Motor Company in 1905. Austin licensed the move of a part of its operations to the United States in 1929, setting up a factory in Butler, Pennsylvania. Deepening of the Depression brought the American Austin into bankruptcy in 1934. Roy Evans bought the American Austin, renaming it American Bantam in 1935. There is a lot of different information out there about the true origins of the BRC. Eventually the Army, Willie, and even Ford claimed credit for the introduction of it. However, in 1938, Roy Evans arranged through Harry Payne to loan two small 4x2 Bantam trucks to the QMC for evaluation. The QMC expressed solid interest in the design. The QMC settled upon a 75-inch wheelbase vehicle that weighed 1,200 pounds, right around the specifications for the Bantam truck. Most of the impetus for this is not given where credit should be. The blueprint drawings rendered by the Army for its Recon vehicle specifications were largely based upon the submissions by Bantam. It was about 20% Army and 80% Bantam, almost directly taken from the Bantam Roadster blueprints. 1940 was the time the troubles for Bantam began. The headquarters contingent that rejected everything began circulating disinformation about the ability of Bantam to engineer and produce the Recon vehicle. It did appear that someone in the hierarchy of the QMC wanted the Ford Motor Company to get the bid. Henry Ford used every bit of influence he could muster to try to rig the bid. On July 11, 1940, Army QMC specification for bid was released to 135 manufacturers. Bids had to be returned in 22 days, a pilot vehicle be available in 49 days, and 70 prototype vehicles be available for evaluation in 75 days. Only 3 companies submitted bids: American Bantam, Ford, and Willie Overland. Only Bantam made a commitment to provide a pilot vehicle within the time frame, along with providing 70 vehicles in 75 days. Willie was the low bidder, however, they could not provide a pilot vehicle. It was later decided that the $739 per unit cost bid by Willie was the better value when compared to the $1,166 bid submitted by Bantam. Neither Ford or Willie had much of a clue on how to even proceed to begin to build the vehicle given the bid specifications. Thanks to some questionable moves from the QMC, that would change. Bantam hand-built the first pilot car. The vehicle, codenamed the Blitz Buggy, was completed one day before the deadline. Nicknamed Old Number 1, it had to be delivered to Camp Howlabite in Maryland, 450 miles away, to meet the bid. Showing full faith in the BRC, 2 volunteer technicians put together a picnic basket, then set out for Fort Howlabite. They beat the delivery time by half an hour. At Camp Howlabite were Ford and Willie representatives. One of the first things that the Army did was to hand over all the technical drawings to Willie and Ford. When questioned, the Army claimed that it was theirs to do with what they wanted. As a further insult, Ford and Willie people were allowed to examine it and take photographs. As a result, by the end of November 1940, both Willie's Squad and Ford's Pygmy had prototype vehicles at Camp Howlabite for evaluation. The Willie Overland Quad's vehicle outline almost perfectly matched the Bantam pencil drawing. Despite the rave reviews that you might hear now, the Willie Quad was literally junk. The QMC requirement for weight had been increased at least twice to allow Ford to be able to build the light reconnaissance vehicle. Henry Ford had powerful political connections, despite the fact that his Belgium Ford plant was building trucks for the Nazi regime, and he had made utterances that provoked anti-Semitic accusations. In March 1941, it was decided that all 3 competitors would be awarded contracts to build 1,500 vehicles each. This was about 3 weeks after Willie had held a press conference on the steps of the U.S. Capitol building on February 20, 1941. One of the Willie vehicles was used to drive up the steps to the veranda in front of the building. One of the reporters then asked the Willie representative what the vehicle was called, and he responded, "We call it a Jeep." The story appeared the next day in the Washington newspapers. Maintaining 3 different sets of parts along with 3 different assembly points was not practical. Willie won the bid, coming in at its already set price of $739 per unit. Ford gets credit for the 7-slotted stamped steel grille that became the standard for the Jeep. Over $30 million had been given since the first BRC had been submitted for bid, and Bantam got a very small part. They built their last Jeep at the end of 1941 after making 2,675 of them. they would never build another. Bantam was given the task of designing and building a trailer suitable for towing assignments for the Jeep. It was to be able to handle 500 pounds and be as rugged and reliable as the Jeep. Bantam remained in business building and selling trailers. They were acquired by Armco Steel Company in 1956, and the name was changed, relegating Bantam to the annals of history. In 1953, Kaiser Motors bought Willys Overland, renaming it Willys Motors. In 1963, the company voted to change its name to the Kaiser Jeep Corporation. Kaiser sold its auto business to American Motors Corporation in 1970. AMC made the Jeep brand an autonomous unit. The costs associated with compliance with the exhaust emissions regulations, bumper regulations, and other mandated design interventions sent AMC profits spiraling downwards. Renault was invited in, and bought a chunk of AMC. The United States government did not appreciate their decision to open a full Jeep factory in Russia and to extend interests into China. Profits nosedived. In 1987, Chrysler Corporation bought AMC. Chrysler survived almost entirely on Jeep and minivan profits. AMC methods and engineers were integrated into Chrysler, making 1993 to 1997 some of Chrysler's strongest years.